Hi guys, so in this video real quick I'm going to go over the silent treatment. The silent treatment is one of the most commonly used tools of a narcissist. Both the overt narcissist, the covert, the neglectful, and the malignant, they all use the silent treatment. It is a form of stonewalling and manipulation. And basically, it becomes a way of using their silence as a source of power and control. They use silence to get the upper hand in communication. And what will often happen is if you're in a relationship with one of these people, they'll use the silent treatment, and eventually their victim or their partner or whatever will end up trying to read their mind and trying to do all these things to sort of get the needs, to sort of meet the needs of the narcissist. I encourage you to not do that, but we'll get to that in a minute. So basically with the why the silent treatment is partly stonewalling and manipulation is because they're actually, they're manipulating, they're using it. They're using this as a form of manipulation to gain power and control over other people. It's also a form of gaslighting, because what is happening is essentially when the narcissist is giving you the silent treatment, they are, your reality is, in a sense, it's almost like it's being denied, and you might start to think that something is your fault that isn't, and so you start blaming yourself. You might be like, why are they ignoring me, or why aren't they responding? And it's a way of manipulating your reality, and it's very dismissive. What you should do, or I shouldn't say should, but a good proper reaction to the silent treatment would be to say something like, hey, the silent treatment that you're giving me right now is totally unacceptable. That's not an adult form of communication. But instead, what we often do when we're in relationships with these sorts of people is we start to blame ourselves, and we're like, what do we do? This is somehow my fault. And of course, narcissists are experts at manipulating situations and not accepting any personal responsibility. So they're great at blame shifting and projecting onto other people. So what are some of the reasons why they do this? Well, one is, it's, like I mentioned, it's to gain power and control. Another is because they have an incredible lack of emotional maturity. It's basically somebody, in their mind, they're going to get their way by not talking. It's a form of a tantrum. This silent treatment is a form of rage. It's just a non-verbal rage. So they're going to get their way like a small child, like a toddler is having a tantrum, but it's silent, like somebody made me mad, and so I'm gonna not talk to them. It's a very, very immature response. It's not the way that adults communicate. And it also shows like a profound lack of interpersonal skills, like interpersonal adult skills to be able to communicate in an adult, emotionally mature manner. So it's displaying incredible emotional immaturity and a lack of proper interpersonal skills. And it's showing, that they have this incapacity to communicate as an adult. And especially if there's any sort of uncomfortable issue, they have a inability to resolve conflict or to even face conflict because, they're living in this, their adult body, but they're, a toddler inside. And, because narcissists have a really hard time taking any personal responsibility, they can't work together with their partner as, a team and have this adult communication and, sort of have discussion over difficult subjects like sex and money and, all the things that normal people and normal relationships argue about. They can't have a normal, communication with another person, not an adult communication. And then, so what happens often when you're in relationship with these people is, you end up being the adult in the relationship. You're the adult and you're with a toddler, basically. You're with somebody who has the emotional maturity of a toddler. Another piece of this is sort of they're very dysregulated. So a narcissist in general has an inability to regulate their emotions, right? So this is a form of, this is a form of silent rage. It's this petulance. It's this tantrum throwing sort of dysregulated emotion. So they, have this inability to properly regulate their emotions in a healthy way. So this is just sort of another form of that, where they're having this like silent rage. And really it's the same. It's almost the same as someone actually, the overt narcissist having this overt rage. The silent treatment is a form of rage. It's just a silent rage. And again, this sort of communication is not adult communication. It just isn't. This is a very maladaptive way to try to communicate with another person. And you will find this, especially with the covert narcissist or the neglectful narcissist, you will find a fifth component of this sort of, silent treatment is that they are, they're always the victim. They're like the chronic victims. They're the victim. This is happening to them. Nobody understands them. They're so unique. Poor me. And it's this very like passive aggressive form of almost like punishing the other person for not being able to properly read their mind and not being able to, understand how complex they truly are. And they feel so misunderstood, right? So it's this very passive aggressive way of dealing with their feelings of being this victim. They're just the chronic victim. And you are going to see this really profound passive aggressive behaviors, especially with the covert narcissist, especially with the neglectful narcissist. With the neglectful narcissist, they barely talk, right? Because they can't be bothered to even use words when they're dealing with people, because they're just, it's beneath them. Why should they waste their their genius words on you minions, right? So it's like that sort of really incredibly dismissive attitude. But essentially, they use the silent treatment. It's a form of control. It's a form of silent rage. It's a sign of incredible emotional immaturity. It's a sign of really stunted growth. It's a sign of this inability to have normal interpersonal skills to be able to communicate like an adult. So I know if you've been in a relationship with one of these people, the silent treatment is what they do. It's this like silent tantrum. You're dealing with a small child, and I'm so sorry that you've experienced this. It's not fun. And once you start having more adult, once you start you get out of that relationship, you start having adult relationships, and you're like, oh wow, this is so different. This is how people communicate when they're being honest, authentic, and they're not using all of these weird passive aggressive, stonewalling, gaslighting, silent treatment methods of trying to control other people. But yeah, I hope this was helpful for you. I'm going to do a few more videos on some of the maladaptive communication strategies that narcissists tend to use to control other people. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.